What's up everybody? Nate here. So the housing market has been on fire over the last 2.5 years. We've seen records in just about everything you can think of, from record high prices to record low inventory and record low interest rates. And that has pretty much led every single expert and investor to ask, is the housing market going to stay on fire, or are we eventually going to see a collapse? Well, with all of the craziness that's been happening over the last 2 years in the housing market, it's important to remember that nothing, and I mean nothing, can stay exactly the same forever. And more than likely, there is gonna be some change to the housing market in 2022. Housing inventory is getting even lower. The Federal Reserve just announced that it's raising its benchmark interest rates by 1/4 percentage point, and bank and financial institution interest rates for mortgages are already starting to go up and are now rising by nearly 2-year highs. So with all that being said, today we're gonna talk about the potential changes that could be coming to the housing market in 2022. We're going to go over everything here, from interest rates starting to rise to inventory starting to go down, and what that is all going to mean for you and buyers throughout the country. But before I get into all of that, do me a quick favor and hit, smash, or destroy that thumbs up button below, and ring that notification bell too. Both of those two things are completely free, and they help to show me that you like this video and that you want to see even more just like it. Thank you so much for doing that. But now let's talk all about the potential changes that could be coming to the housing market in 2022. So the very first thing that I want to mention about the housing market is that it is notoriously difficult to predict. If you remember all the way back in 2006 and 2007, nobody, and I mean pretty much nobody, thought the housing market was going to collapse. I wonder how that one turned out. Obviously, we saw a housing market disaster then in 2008. But could something like that actually happen in 2022? Right now, most experts and most companies believe that the housing market is going to continue to soar in 2022. In fact, Zillow believes that we're going to see an increase of around 16.1% in home values just this year. Goldman Sachs also believes that it's going to be around 16%. And Fannie Mae believes that we're going to see an 11% increase in housing values in 2022, followed by a pretty small increase in 2023. Now, what exactly has been driving that? Well, the reason why all of these experts and businesses are saying that home values are going to continue to go up in 2022 and beyond has pretty much been based on two things: home inventory and interest rates. Since pretty much about March of 2020, interest rates have been at 0%, but that is all changing now in March of 2022. The Federal Reserve just recently announced that it's raising its benchmark interest rates from 0% to 0.25%. Now that might not sound like a lot, but it makes it harder for banks and financial institutions to borrow money. And if it's harder for them to get their money, then they're gonna make it a lot harder for you to get a mortgage from them. Okay, the spider web there was kind of confusing, but basically what you need to know is that it's going to be harder for you to get a mortgage. What that means is in 2022, you're gonna start to see buyers essentially disappear from the market. They are simply not going to be able to afford to get a new house. These housing prices are out of control right now. And on top of that, it's going to be way harder for them to get a mortgage, so they're just not even going to apply. And if somebody is actually approved for a mortgage, then they're gonna have to pay more because the interest rate is a lot higher. That's pretty tough in our country right now because we have inflation hitting new record highs just about every single month. In fact, in February 2022, inflation hit a new over 40-year high of around 7.9%. That has pretty much skyrocketed over the last year and a half. And then you've got the other aspect, low inventory. So housing prices are going to continue to go up because there is just not a lot on the market. That is sort of the idea of supply and demand. If you have millions of Americans who want a house, but there's not millions of homes on the market, well then all of those home buyers are going to have to outbid each other and compete to get that home. So sellers basically haven't been putting as many houses on the market, and that number has pretty much decreased for the past few months. So you continue to have super low inventory, super high prices, high interest rates, and low buyers. Well, something has got to change in in the housing market for things to continue this way. And the reason housing prices have gone up like crazy over the last few years, with businesses and investors saying that the market is going to continue to rise, is because when the pandemic first started and interest rates dropped, millions of Americans could then go out and afford a mortgage. On top of that, we had trillions of dollars in economic stimulus that basically acted as your buy a home fund. And that worked for 2020 and in 2021 because there were millions of buyers, but there were also millions of people willing to put their house on the market. They were going to make a huge profit because there were so many people that wanted houses. And for the most part, people did, and that is still true to this day. However, we could start to see that change in 2022. There's not as many buyers anymore, and there's not as many houses on the market, so basically, housing values are gonna have to come down. Now, because the housing market is so hard to predict, how low are housing prices going to go? Well, it really depends. The Federal Reserve has raised its benchmark interest rates because now they want to eliminate that demand. They don't want to make it necessarily impossible for somebody to get a mortgage or another loan, but they want to make it difficult. Less money circulating throughout our economy generally means that inflation is going to go down. But it also means that it's pretty difficult to get a mortgage right now, with mortgage rates in the United States actually increasing from around 3.9 to around 4.2%, the fastest we've seen in just about 2 years. And this situation is only going to get worse for interest rates. The Federal Reserve recently announced that it plans on 6 more interest rate hikes just in 2022 alone. Then it's going to do 3 in 2023 and then 1 in 2024. That is pretty serious because now, even if it's at only a 1/4 percentage point, you're talking about interest rates going from 0%, then they could almost go up to around 2 to 3% by 2024. That is going to lock millions of Americans out of getting a home. And if there is nobody willing to pay these outrageous prices for homes, well, then a few things can happen. The homeowner can decrease the price of the home, they can pull their home from the market completely, or interest rates can go back down. And I guess there's another one. The Federal Reserve can print some money. That last one is most likely not going to happen anytime soon. I mean, the Fed is going to print money, but it's not going to be given to everyone in the United States like it was in 2020 and in 2021. We have already started to see home prices slightly decrease in the United States. Now, they haven't gone down a whole lot, but as there's been such little inventory and fewer buyers, well, that means that housing prices naturally have to decrease. And obviously, this is going to depend on the area. There's going to be certain areas in the United States that are going to remain red hot for a very long time. And there's going to be some areas in the United States that start to decrease way faster than others. It really just depends on the specific markets and how many buyers and sellers there are in that market. And of course, interest rates for different regions are going to be different too, and it depends on which financial institution you get a mortgage from. The general consensus is still that housing prices are going to go up. And I know what you're thinking, Nate, you just said housing prices are gonna go down. Well, like I said at the beginning of this video, the housing market is complicated. So even though you're going to most likely see fewer homes go on the market and fewer buyers, there's still going to be buyers and there's still going to be sellers. Even though that number is decreasing, there is going to be demand in the economy for houses, meaning that home values are still going to rise because people are still going to continue to buy homes. And they're going to buy homes for way overinflated values. When a home actually sells for way above asking and appreciates in value that much in such a short period of time, well, that affects everything in the housing market. For instance, even if you don't plan to put your house on the market anytime soon, well, your home is still appreciating in value because of the surrounding market. If there were 10 to 50 houses in your neighborhood that are selling for way overinflated values, well, if you put your house on the market, it's going to sell at a higher number than you think it will. The bigger question is, how high are they actually going to go? And that's really going to depend on who is looking for a house at that particular moment. I mean, we have seen bidding wars like crazy over the last 2.5 years because interest rates have been so low. People were willing to spend more for a home because they were saving so much much in interest. That's not going to be the case if interest rates continue to go up and people are still spending $10, $20, and even $50,000 more than what the asking price is. That simply can't continue. So what you might end up seeing in the housing market is houses that are put up for sale and then they're actually selling for that price. So there's not a lot of buyers in the market, and the people who are willing to pay that price for the home are going to snatch it up quickly. In my opinion, you won't continue to see those high appreciation numbers like you saw in 2020 and in 2021. Yes, in general, the housing market is going to continue to go up in 2022, but I really wouldn't be surprised if you started to see many homes throughout the country actually decrease in value. And we have to ask ourselves, how much are they actually decreasing in value? Because if a home is listed for $100,000, but that value is already way overinflated and it drops down to $90,000, well, it still might be appreciating in value because 2 years ago, it was only worth $60,000. Bottom line here is this: once the demand is eliminated by the Federal Reserve because interest rates are going up like crazy, well, then you're gonna see less buyers. Less buyers and more homes on the market means that prices ultimately are gonna have to come down, or they will at least not be going up like crazy. Fact is right now though that you still have way more buyers than there are homes on the market. Those have to kind of equal out for us to see any major changes in the housing market this year. I don't have a glass ball or a magic 8-ball or anything, so I can't really tell you for certain what is going to happen in the housing market this year. But what I can tell you is, based on the economic conditions and the monetary policy from the Federal Reserve, housing prices have no choice but to cool off. I mean, you have a situation where the Fed is raising interest rates and you have inflation that is still going up in our economy. Of course, the Fed raising rates is to battle inflation, but in the short term, that means people are going to have less access to money, which means less spending. Less spending is going to mean that prices hopefully either decrease or cool off just about everywhere in our economy, from Wall Street to your street. And I know it might feel weird to have some sense of normalcy in our economy after the last 2 or 3 years that we've had, but to be completely honest with you, I'm kind of looking forward to it. But now I want to hear from you on this issue. What do you think about the current state of the housing market in 2022? Do you think that home prices and the housing market are going to continue to set new record highs in 2022? Or do you think that finally home prices are set to at least cool off, if not drop, this year? Whatever your thoughts are, leave a comment below before you go. But that is it for today's business and financial news breakdown. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to stay up to date with all of the top business and financial news from around the country, our team puts together a free daily newsletter, and you can subscribe to it by clicking the link in this corner right here. And if you want to stay up to date with me and everything else happening in the business and financial world, I'm putting out uploads 7 days a week over here on this channel, and I've actually got another upload ready for you right here, so be sure to check that out before you go. That is it for me, everybody. Be kind out there, and I'll see you all in the next one.